Introduction to weight training. What I want to take you through is how to be effective but also safe with weight training, certainly with the amount of workshops we do in person, as well as many of our retreats, and seeing someone's progression over the course of a week that many people can't make in a year. I want to show you through some of those top cues that really make a huge difference. And as you'll know, if you followed us for a long time, you'll see that we're really strong in making sure resistance training is part of your routine, not just Pilates, not just walking. How is weight training different? What are the key things that need to be considered? And I want to take you through these in this training alongside with Mandy, who's been with plenty of retreats and things, seen that progression over time. Obviously, I think made quite a lot of progress yourself as well. Now getting to the point that we're, lifting well over body weight and feeling like you're doing it in a way that you're getting strong without everything breaking, right? And I think as we get older, and I think in many cases, it's actually been interesting. A lot of people lately have said like they hit their 30s or they hit their 40s and things really change. Like it's not really like a 50s, 60s. Of course, there's a progression over time and maybe it's stages. But really, I think that confidence in will my body stay together when I lift something heavy actually seems to be more of like a 30, 35 discussion rather than a 40, 45. It's just that confidence to get back into it. So where I want to start with this is the Pilates thing. I think I want to really dig in on this because so many amazing women that we talk to are doing everything they possibly can for their health and they're not weight training. So they're just missing such a low-hanging fruit that could make a world of difference to everything else they're doing. They're eating well, they're doing the Pilates, which I am a big fan of. I'm not saying don't do it, but it's not giving you that strength aspect. So Mandy, you and I were talking about this just before around things like the triathlons, right? And this is something I did a lot in high school and before. And I always thought that as we got older, we would get better at endurance, right? Because I saw all the old guys kind of moving into longer and longer distances. And you kind of brought up something really good, which is on my side, it may have been that people were losing strength and, of course, losing muscle mass, as we now know. But there's also kind of that second aspect of like resilience, right? And being able to kind of tolerate pain longer. So it's this weird
Mhm.
balance between like just becoming this diesel engine where you can just push the body for longer and longer, but you don't have the same strength and power in order to keep your speed up. So that
Mhm.
accumulative or chronic stress in a way can kind of continue to rise, whereas we continue to lose that speed in the short term.
I actually had a really good conversation. This has just twigged in my memory. Yesterday with a lady, she's 61, and earlier this year she ran her first half marathon. It was one on her bucket list. She was going to run a marathon, half marathon when she was 60. She'd always been into running, and she did it. But she's like, it just blew me away how much it knocked me. She said, I didn't want to run and I didn't feel like I had the capacity to run again for about 3 months after the fact. And she's like, when I was running it, she's like, I was actually okay. And I had got into this kind of flow and I could just keep going. Like mentally, she had that tenacity there to just keep going and pushing through the discomfort and endure it. And she actually got a pretty good time, but it just knocked her around so much. And she's actually signed up to run it again next year. So she's going to be 62. But her goal is I'm going to strength train and I'm going to eat well and I'm going to prepare to do it so that I can, one, do it well and enjoy it, but two, come out the other side of it not just feeling knackered. And super cool lady. I wanted to talk to her for hours because like there's so much in this, that mentality piece. But I do think that and I guess the gap happens here for everyone, but I see it strongly with women, but I talk to a lot of women, and that is that we often women will get into movement or get into exercise, or maybe they always have been in that cardio aspect. And there's this disconnect between movement just being good versus movement being effective for what you're actually trying to achieve. And I think the same thing happens with nutrition, where people say, well, I'm eating clean, but I'm not losing weight. And it's because clean eating doesn't lose you weight. Specific eating helps you to lose weight. And it's the same with training, right? Where all movement is good, but all movement isn't necessarily appropriate for the thing you're trying to achieve. And strength training is that piece that's not always grasped, that we actually need this progressive stimulus to maintain power, not just mental endurance to endure discomfort for long. We actually have to protect that ability to, and it's nervous system and muscle, right, to actually contract a muscle hard and strongly in any given moment. And it's not just about how we look, it's about how you age, what abilities you're able to maintain. We were talking, about this in the aging population. Like if you slip over, can you grab onto something and hold yourself, or can you pull yourself back up? Or there needs to be a certain amount of power protected there, not just mental endurance of, okay, I'm in pain now, but I can keep going.
Yeah. And I'm writing about this a lot in regards to staging training, right? If you're say you're starting at ground zero now and you want to get fit, healthy, and just overall badass. What order do you do things from? And do you start with the fitness? Do you start with the fat loss? And those kind of become the first two. But I'm saying in most cases, and I guess what you're highlighting is start with strength.
Mm.
Because if you can get yourself strong, build that bone and muscle density, and have a level of basically building back that engine, so you have so much more ease in building back muscle. Sorry,
Mm.
dropping body fat and keeping yourself strong. And I've got one client that comes to mind with your example here, who I've been coaching for about 4 years now. And every single year, at the end of the year, he has a 100K, or actually it's about a 400K as a cumulative over 3 days that he races as part of a charity ride. And we've been able to walk through that progression 3 times now and just getting ready for the fourth one. So I've been able to exactly experiment what you're talking about with him in regards to the first year was just pure volume, how he'd always done it. And I said, cool, you've done this before, so I just want to see how you respond. And then we can pick up the broken pieces afterwards and rebuild.
Mm.
The second year, what we did was we really focused on strength. But we overdid it in regards to we got him really, really strong, but we didn't give him enough time to build the endurance for the race. So he's like, I felt fantastic on the hills, but I just felt overly spent by the end of the 4 days because I didn't have the endurance. I was like, that makes sense. We built back a level of muscular power, but we just hadn't purely put the volume on the seat, and that's a note taken.
Mm.
Third time round, it was that progression of build back their strength, which we've now got a really lovely platform in place. Now we're going to work on fat loss because we want to get that out of the way before you build a ton of volume. And I think that's a real disconnect for so many people is they want to, out cardio the problem. And if you're in a
Mm.
spot that you're particularly insulin resistant or you haven't dropped body fat or you've always kind of held on to more than you thought you would, you're doing more of a specific fat loss phase for him was actually reducing his volume of cardio, not increasing it in order to strip off that weight around the waistline. And then we could still give him an adequate 4 months, 3.5, 4 months in order to build that fitness back up for the ride. So not only is he stronger on the hills, leaner, so he's lighter on the bike, and built back the endurance to hit the ride, he's like, this was the best ride I'd done since I was 40. Like there's a huge shift in his enjoyment of that ride because he had all three, right? And we seem to think of a lot of things in threes, but like that sort of multifaceted approach of training being a seasonal thing, which we've discussed plenty of times before. And in as we get older, this guy's late 50s now. It's in a spot where we want to maintain the things that are going to drop first, right? And endurance, you can kind of keep on track as long as there's an aerobic capacity baseline kept in place. And if not, quite frankly, most of these guys have got enough mental resilience to work through them. But the
Yeah.
things that are lost is the muscle mass and the strength. And obviously, if they've got no muscle, the fat loss starts to really catch up as well, right? So I
Mm.
think being able to stage things in that way highlights that regardless of your activity, whether it's just to feel good on a day-to-day basis, or it is to run the half marathon, or these crazy, 3-day events of hundreds of Ks, strength is still such a foundation, anything over 40, if you want to keep that body mobile, active, and functional in any way.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a silly example, but you know how when you wake up in the morning and you go to clench your fist and you kind of can't squeeze that hard? Have you ever
Yep.
had that where
Yep.
you're no less strong in that moment than you are at any other time of the day. The disconnect there is that there is a difference in like nerve capacity or function or nervous system control or whatever. And I think that's the bit that we miss with the strength training is that it's not just about the muscle that you have, but it's about how you have actually trained to contract those muscles hard or not.
Hmm.
And that's the bit that just kind of jumping on the bike and riding for hours doesn't train, right? And it's the bit
Yep.
that we lose because we don't even know we have it to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's bring up the example that we were going to talk about with the Pilates to circle back around to this. We've just finished up a retreat in Queensland with 13 members from all over New Zealand, Australia, and it was really, really great in these types of examples because typically a workshop that we do will be over a weekend and we'll have 3 hours or so to go through all the movements and build up confidence. Where a retreat is different is that over 4 or 5 days, we're able to continue to refine, continue to progress those movements. And like I said before, people were making more progress in 4 days than they made in the previous 6 months. And
Mm.
one particular lady here who had been with us a long time, done some initial weight training and then sort of gone back to Pilates for quite a while, is still maintaining many of the recovery and nutrition pieces, but just not doing the weight training, right? Her movement awareness was fantastic, right? She was obviously breathing well. She held herself well. Kind of think that sort of ballerina posture, right? Like you hold yourself well. But when we got into the actual resistance side of things, we found that once we got beyond a particular threshold, she just sort of crumbled. She didn't have that strength, that power output to really make the most of movement. If we gave her 25 reps, great, she could move really well, but she had no power behind it. And she was like, okay, no, this kind of shows like something here. I need to just work a little stronger. But the one that really hit her was we went on an assault bike, and hopefully you know what an assault bike is. If not, uh, give it a go. You won't like me very much afterwards. But essentially, it's like a spin bike with handles that you hold as well. So as you're going crazy with your legs, you're also going crazy with your arms, and it's a fantastic interval exercise in order to be like as much aerobically as it is fat burning as well. But it's a really, really good measure of how much power output you can actually put in, right? So I would say someone is strong and effective in these motions if they're getting above at least sort of 500 watts, or kind of a bigger guy, maybe above like 700, 800 watts, all right? And we did a simple challenge of 15 calories on the assault bike at the end of one of our workouts. And the results were anywhere between sort of 25 seconds up to maybe a minute for most of our members. I did 11 seconds, but it gave us a nice awareness of like how long did it truly take to burn 15 calories on an assault bike. If you haven't given that a go and you've got access to a gym, try that next week and just give yourself kind of a gauge of where do you sit. Now, this particular lady, again, movement-wise was good. Overall looked healthy from the outside, but sort of late 50s and really wanted to look after longevity. And this was a real smack in the face for her. She got on, and it took her just under 2 minutes to complete because she couldn't get her wattage above like 150, maybe 200, right? And that fundamentally shows what me and Mandy have been talking about here, is that there's a huge difference between muscular awareness or endurance and strength. And when you fall at 85, strength is what you need, right? That ability to have that muscular power and bone density so that you can get back up, or when you go down, you don't break. And all of the things that kind of emulates in independence and mobility long term. So for her, I know she's going to be getting back into strength training, right? Because Pilates is great, and I love the awareness, the core, the breathing, all of that stuff that comes through. But if we're not bringing in that strength, that power component, you know, these sort of things happen, and we start to realize we get frail, we get old, we get slow really, really quickly. So you brought up an amazing quote, and I need to bring it up now, from Katie. There's a big shout out to Katie, who's been following our stuff for a little while. And she put up a post with her deadlifts the other day that said, Pilates is cute, osteoporosis is not, go lift something heavy.
So good. So good. I think as well with the like Pilates and the endurance aspect, the other way that I see this come in for a lot of people is people like gardeners or people who are cleaning or doing some sort of physical kind of longer term job, and there's this tendency to, well, I don't do that because I'm already physically active, I'm already doing this stuff, but most of that stuff, like even if you're a gardener or a farmer or something like that, a lot of what you're doing will have some moments of strength tied in, not in a progressive way at all, just in a right now I need to lift a calf off the trailer or something, like, you know, but most of it's endurance related strength. It's just being able to go for the whole day. So again, it's missing that key component of what are you actually protecting here. The thing that we need to protect is the thing we don't realize that we actually need, and that's what you can actually kind of really target with strength training.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Like the shearers, the fencers, the tree loppers, like we've worked with all of them, and they could have every excuse in the book to say, well, I'm doing enough movement. But with specific strength training, where we're really probably targeting more of a 6 to 8 rep range, and we're not really needing to work on endurance because that's all day for them. All we're trying to maintain is the fact that, okay, you're really overdeveloped on your shoulders and forearms compared to your lats and glutes. So there's a huge combating of imbalances for one, so they can keep doing the things they need to do long term, and then of course that power output so they stay strong, and when they go to lift the calf they can actually do it. I think that's super important, and a nice example. Like if you're sedentary and you're office bound, then of course this is going to be absolutely helpful, but there's always that outlier where we've got a 10-15% of our client base that will be actually very active in their day, but they're still seeing their body slow down, and it's a good example of, yes, this is still needed.
Yeah, super important.
Cool. So look, the area I want to come back to is where we kind of started with, being the actual workshop itself. So I want to give you a couple cues here just to help you with what to focus on and building that confidence back. And I think fundamentally the overarching theme here is give yourself a reasonable amount of time to feel good in order to like build up that confidence rather than saying like, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm like, you've been doing it for 2 days. Like give yourself
Mm.
a reasonable amount of time. But once we've got that right, try think about this. And my example of this is always if you're trying to instruct someone to get up on water skis for the first time, right, behind a boat. And there are so many things that can go wrong with simply two skis on your feet when trying to pull through the water. But usually it's a case of, okay, bent legs, straight arms. And that can be so much to think about when you try to get up for the first time. And as soon as you have someone who's not exactly eloquent in their coaching style, here's 10, 15 things that you need to think about, and then good luck, try to get up. And it really, really, really ever works. So being able to shift that back to, cool, I'm just going to get you to feel like you've got some pressure in your feet and you feel like that's loading once we build some speed, and just keep those arms straight. Don't try to pull yourself up, otherwise you will fall over. And that's
Mm.
all I need you to focus on. And every time they fall over, go back and just reinforce the same thing, and then try it again, and then try it again. And then it'll click, because that difference between theoretical knowledge and actual experiential knowledge is very different. Like, that's what you mean. That's what it feels like. And that's exactly what these workshops are about, certainly when they're over multiple days. So the big one there is, you mentioned it before, uh, don't add weight until you feel the muscle, right? That's a huge
Mm.
one for people, that probably more males, when they want to lift something heavy in order to feel the chest. But in
Mm.
doing so, they ruin their rotator cuff and their shoulder, because the only reason they feel the muscle is because it's under so much load that it has to be felt.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if you can slow something down enough to contract and feel and then sort of build the weight up, you're so much more aware that that's an intentional contraction, not just a
Mm.
slinging weights around until something's sore, right? And I think that's a fundamental difference between the sort of muscle bound, tight, achy weight training association that we make versus, oh, I actually feel strong, mobile, and actually have more range. I think it truly is that muscle awareness and contraction without loading weight. And if you're listening to this, sitting down, walking, whatever else, like just try contract your bicep or your lat or one muscle individually, which you should be able to just squeeze, feel, and then come back. If
Mm.
you can't do that, then you have no business picking up a dumbbell and hopefully directing tension there, because your body will always find a way to use something else. So that's slowing things down, right? If you're trying to learn, I always use this example of French, because it's very tongue-tied if you do it wrong. If you try speak words too quickly, then it just blah, blah, blah. Like it doesn't really work. You have to slow down and articulate those words in order to actually be able to communicate.
Mm.
And it's exactly the same with weight training. Is the funny thing that the human body does is, as soon as they feel uncomfortable or they feel like it's a new movement, they'll speed it up, they'll bounce, right? So
Yeah.
contracting, slowing things down, bringing awareness to that mindfulness that certainly if you're already doing the yoga Pilates, you have. We just need to associate that same level of mindfulness to weight training, and you'll be miles ahead of so many others.
Yeah, yeah. I feel this a lot with like you when you're at the bottom of a squat and you pause for a moment, if you've got no weight on, you can kind of like choose whether you put that force, which is going to be required to get you back up through your knees, or whether you use your muscles to actually do
Yep.
it, like your glutes and your hamstrings and whatnot, or your quads. Um, and but if you've got weight on, and especially if it's too much weight on like a bar or holding dumbbells or whatever, it's like you can't have that, because your body just needs to get out of that position fast, because it can't hold it, or you
Mhm.
crumble. And I think it's really, that's a big muscle group, but you can do that with any muscle group. Like, are you actually feeling the muscle enough to pause before you contract and actually intentionally contract that specific muscle? And I think for people new to strength training, I've talked to quite a few people in the space recently, just one the other day actually, who has been doing our workout reset, and she, from a base of never having strength trained ever, never picked up a dumbbell, never really actually done any exercise at all, just not her wheelhouse, very creative sort of individual who just hadn't really gotten into anything like that, but she wanted to. And so she's worked her way through our workout reset, and she's doing really well, but there's just a couple of little points where she was struggling, and one of her shoulders was a bit sore, and we had a bit of a conversation about this, and just identifying the muscle that's meant to do the work on a specific exercise. Like, if you're going to do a movement and you don't know which muscle's doing the work, then you shouldn't really do the thing. Like, work out what's actually working first.
Mhm.
And the other conversation I had was with one of the ladies from the retreat, who said she's come home, she's dropped all of her weights back down. She's like, because I was getting sore because I was actually just hoisting things around, because she's obviously relatively strong, but not actually using the muscles well or contracting well. And she's like, it's actually so good just to drop the weight down, actually slow the movement down, feel it,
Yep.
and then progress back up. And you've got to put your ego aside to do that. Eh? You've got to be like, actually, I want to get this right. I don't just want to lift more.
Yeah, 100%. No, being more specific with training, one lady from the retreat was exactly that, where she had got into weight training and she was actually really enjoying it. And this was the first time in her life that she'd enjoyed exercise, right? And there was a huge win in itself of, I
Mm.
actually weight train now, and I don't feel like that's a weird thing to say. I
Yeah,
feel good
yeah,
about doing it, right? And I think that's a huge win. I really, really love hearing that from people that have always struggled with seeing themselves as a fit person or as a healthy person, like
yeah,
really having that association with like, no, I weight training because I'm now 50 and I want to make sure I'm still good at 70, right?
yeah.
That's a huge one. But the second part for her was like, I'm so glad that you're into weight training now, but I've seen where you've placed muscle, and it's your traps, it's your shoulders, and it's your quads, because those are the muscles that you were always strong in, and you've now got stronger, but you've continued to place muscle on the areas that you were strong. And then what
Yeah.
that leads to down the line is that niggly shoulder or the funny elbow or whatever might come through, because those imbalance become a bit more of a problem. And the trouble is this overall, certainly from what I've heard, is this muscle bound word keeps coming back of like, as if building muscle will make you sort of achier or tighter, and that is not the case
Mm.
at all. It's that mindfulness element that can be missed, and I think it's the classic, the devil's in the details there. With when we learn how to do something properly and we build that quality of movement, that's huge, right? Like improving your diet is not going to keto and drastically changing everything. Improving your diet is stripping out foods that make you feel bloated and adding foods that give you energy, right?
Yeah.
And if we can do that same thing to weight training, it's like, cool, lifting muscles will make you strong, but being able to control and be mindful of what you're doing is going to allow that to be more of a complete, balanced look. So for
Mm.
this lady, she was like, I can't feel my lats. I'm like, cool, well, stop speeding the thing up and stop lifting the bigger dumbbells, because your biceps and shoulders simply just keep doing more. So
Yeah.
what that looked like is if you imagine a one arm row or holding a dumbbell, rowing it towards you. Um, what would usually happen in that position is you tend to hit the back of the motion, bounce out of it, and then go into the next rep. So it tends to be like a 2 second thing. For her, I got her to hold 2 or 3 seconds at the back, and she's like, oh, I'm still not really feeling it, but something's moving better. I was like, great. Drop the weight again, and I want you to hold for 10 seconds at the back at every single rep. And I want to make sure you feel that muscle before you lift. And what you're building there is exactly what you mentioned, is just that neural connection with the muscle, or more simple term of mind muscle connection that many people use. I still like it,
Yeah.
of give yourself enough time to feel the muscle that you never feel, right? If you think about maybe a quad muscle or a bicep, maybe those are ones that people can commonly feel. If you flex your bicep and you squeeze, you can probably feel that like right away. But if your
Mm.
lats are a muscle that you have no idea what that feels like, you're going to need to give yourself a good amount of time to bring that neural connection. And in her case, we have a 10-second hold, 10-second holds, and she's like, I feel like I'm moving better, but I still don't actually feel it. I'm like, okay, no worries. We'll come back to this in 2 days. This is beneficial with a retreat. And then the second movement there, day 2 was a leg day. So there's more awareness on just stability of the upper body. Day 3, we came back to the back training again. And she's like, oh, there's something going on here. Like there's like, what is this muscle? I've just discovered a new part of my body. And it was really, really good to be like, oh, well, there's been 20 years worth of disassociation with that muscle. It was quite normal for you not to feel that right away. And I
Mm.
think being able to, again, give yourself that space in order to feel the motion, do things right, and slow it down enough that your body can learn that skill and become effective at something. So that's kind
Yeah.
of a mixture of two things, right? There was all sorts of other funky things I could have given her with the one arm row, with angle of her arm, keeping the elbows in, different angle. Breathing is always a big one. But the main thing here is cool. I just need you to slow it down, hold 10 seconds at the back, and feel that slight flutter or contraction of a lat,
Mm.
and then try find it the next rep again, right? And once you've got that and you know what you're looking for, and your world changes when you start doing a one arm row, you're not just thinking about a dumbbell going forward and backwards towards you. You've now got some sort of lat muscle you're actually focusing on, right? And that's a fundamental difference in how you contract. And this might be a very niche example, but it's the only one I can think of.
Mm.
When I was doing the track racing on the motorbikes, is so many people would worry about where their front tire was and like looking at where they were turning, and they would always stuff up the corner. Whereas anyone that's good at racing is always looking past the corner so that they hit the apex and nail the rest of it. And
Yeah.
I bring that up as the example of what you focus on, even if you're trying to do it right, can fundamentally change if you're focusing on the right thing. If you're thinking about the dumbbell going backwards and forwards, that's totally different than thinking about the muscle you're actually contracting and what that feels like, what that looks like.
Yeah, totally. It's the same with mountain biking, right? Got to look through the corner, not at the corner, or you just
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
come off.
that stops me from driving into trees. So let's
Yeah,
try not to do that again.
you forgot it for 1 second.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought of there is with the strength training, if there's a certain amount of patience required in that. Okay, there's this big group, there's this big muscle, your lats maybe, which you haven't felt for the last 20 years because your shoulders and traps have been doing everything. There's a certain amount of patience required in order to take the time to allow your body to reconnect that mind to muscle connection to that movement and then build that up. But there's also value in that, in the sense of if you're new to strength training and you have this story or you don't identify as someone who's an exerciser or a fit person, I've never done that or I don't like it. It allows you to come to this thing as this is a new skill you get to build. There's learning here. It's fun. Like this is kind of like this developing thing, rather than it just being like doing the movement, don't really like it. It's actually, what am I learning here? How did I progress today? What was different? What did I feel that I haven't felt before? And I think that can be quite cool too. And especially for me, like coming from a background of never having strength training, getting into strength training, that was part of what kept me kind of wanting to do it. Because it's like I didn't get that right last time I did it. I want to go back and try again and see if I can feel it this time. And sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have a bad day or whatever. But the point is that it keeps it kind of interesting until you just develop that new identity of this is what I do. I'm someone who strength trains.
Totally. I think that's a really good point. Like that you could totally undermine that one, but like if you're taking the time to listen and hear all of these cues from your body of what it's actually telling you, it becomes so much more interesting than counting to 10, resting 30 seconds and coming back again, right? Like it's this whole awareness of like, oh, I'm actually really getting all these signals from my body. I was a bit tight this week because this, that, and that. Now I'm working on strengthening this. I've got this imbalance I'm now aware of, so I'm rebuilding the muscles, and I actually genuinely feel like my shoulder's better than it was 2 weeks ago. Like you just have this whole like, I'm working with my body. I feel like I'm heading in the right direction. I'm getting constant feedback. Like this is so much
Yeah.
more fun.
Yeah.
And like I said with the lady before, is like the actual like I enjoy training now. I'm looking forward to it, not because I feel strong or energetic every day. I actually feel quite tired, but I know that I'm working on a level of movement, a level of like self development in a physical sense that
Mm.
is absolutely improving both how I feel now and that longevity aspect as well.
Yeah.
Um, there was a second component I was going to bring in there, but I'm not sure it was the what was it? The development of movement over time is also the season aspect. And I think there's two components I want to look at this through the lens of is if you're listening to this and it's hopefully reinforcing to someone who is already weight training, the key question is, have you got yourself into the sort of going through the motions and not able to uh, really know what muscle you're training. Like you should always be asking, can I feel this muscle? Or am I starting to get to a point that I've actually just started counting numbers on the bar and,
Mm.
there's external gratifying metrics compared to like, actually, let's lower this back down. That was all traps. Let's get my lats working. That's
Mhm.
super important. If you're brand new to this and you're like, this sounds amazing. Okay, you've maybe convinced me to at least try some things. Where do I start? I don't like you just going in online to some YouTube clip where you just bounce around watching someone on screen. This is a meditative process where you want to see how your body feels, like your body, not the one on the screen,
Mhm.
so that it's less about you looking in the mirror and how you look, but like, I can feel that muscle. So that shift that I want to walk you through, if you're hopefully, obviously listening to this, if you can send me an email or send me a message on Instagram and just comment activations, and I'll send you through the series that is a fully guided, completely free 10, 15-minute sequence that you can do at home. You don't need any equipment at all, but it'll fundamentally change how you think about how your body moves based on everything we've talked about today, the exact activations we use in these workshops and retreats in order to just feel those prime muscles that nobody are even aware of. And
Mhm.
if that's all you do, I promise you that that'll make a difference to how you stand, how you structurally feel on a day-to-day basis moving forward. I've got ladies in their 80s, even one in their 90s, who does this every single day, and it's the whole reason they haven't toppled over and broken their hip, right? Being able to build that strength back is going to make a huge difference and a lovely introduction to any weight training you do from there. But it's that real push, whether you've been doing this forever or want to start from day one. It's that, am I feeling the muscle and how does that feel? Not how does it look in the mirror or how am I just emulating someone on screen? Because there's so many signals from your body you're then missing. And that's also the 80% of the results you're leaving on the table too.
Mm. Yeah, I think that there's a danger with just following through on a sequence, say on a video, is that you're so busy trying to keep up with the video, the sequence, that you're
Yep.
not actually connecting at all with what you're trying to do.
100%. Yeah.
Mm.
So, team, I'm going to leave that one there. I love the quote. I'm going to say it again. Pilates is cute. Osteoporosis is not. Go lift something heavy. I think that's the overall phrase. And then there's an ability to really just, you all listen to this because you care about your health now and likely in 20, 30 years from now. What does that look like? And if you're not strength training, you're leaving the biggest rock on the table, which is going to make a huge difference to muscle and bone density. And if you are weight training or want to get into it, don't think about lifting heavy things and making yourself feel worse. Think about slowing things down, bringing this mindful connection to your own body, and start to build this collaborative, balanced nature of I'm feeling these muscles, they're getting stronger, and I feel better because of it. And I think you're in a spot where you create something really long term.